The dome of the Cerro Las Brujas Observatory was a white hemisphere against the blackness. Its slit turned toward the southern sky like a pupil fixed on eternity. Inside, the instruments whispered and clicked through their automated routines, guiding cameras that drank starlight by the photon. And on most nights, while the scientists slept in nearby dormitories or hunched over monitors in Santiago, the only living soul beneath the dome was Manuel Rojas, the janitor. Manuel had the keys to every door, but no credentials to open a single file. He mopped corridors nobody walked, polished handrails nobody touched, emptied bins that overflowed with discarded printouts, and made sure the coffee in the break room never ran out. His shift began at 22:00, when the sky turned velvet and the telescope's shutter cracked open, and ended at dawn when the first glimmer of orange traced the Andes and the birds woke up. He loved the quiet. Even after 20 years on the night shift, he felt humbled each time he stepped onto the catwalk that girdled the dome, the desert stretching away like a frozen ocean under stars that seemed close enough to touch. Manuel's father had tended llamas in the Altiplano, and as a boy he had sat beside ridge-top fires, listening to tales of constellations nobody in the north ever heard of. The llama, the serpent of the lake, the fox with the stolen eggs. The shepherds read shapes in the dark clouds of the Milky Way rather than in its bright points. To them, the sky was an archive of warnings and promises. On a Tuesday night in early August, Manuel followed his routine trash, floors, glass, and ended, as always, in the data processing room. The place smelled of ozone and printer ink. A high-capacity laser printer clattered through automatic runs, spooling sheets onto a wheeled cart. The researchers loved hard copies, sketching notes in the margins with blunt pencils. Manuel's job was to stack the fresh printouts in labeled pigeonholes. That night, a few dozen pages lay abandoned on the cart. Manuel lifted the top sheet to align it with the others. He paused. The chart showed the familiar Southern Cross and coal sack, but something looked off. The declination lines intersected the cross at wrong angles, as though the entire constellation had been sheared eastward. He compared it to a reference poster tacked on the wall. On the poster, Acrux sat neatly at -63 degrees. On the printout, the same star drifted almost a full degree lower. A miscalibration, he murmured, and began to slide the stack into its slot. But curiosity tugged harder than habit. He carried the pages to the metal desk beneath a reading lamp and spread them. They belonged to a time series observation, one chart per night over 2 weeks. On each, stars were nudged ever so slightly. The pattern of shifts was not random. Each night's stars formed their own skewed version of the southern sky. He fetched a pencil and traced the brightest dots across multiple sheets, overlaying transparencies to watch the migration. A shape emerged, jagged, looping, closed upon itself. Not a random scribble, not a scatter of error bars. A design. Memory kindled. When Manuel was 9, his grandfather had traced a similar shape in the dust outside their adobe hut. A serpent with an odd, blocky head, supposedly carved on a gold mask lost by Inca runners fleeing north after the Spanish captured Atahualpa. The old man's finger had outlined humps of hills, a river bend, and a circle that meant treasure buried beneath meltwater stones. The legend said the ransom gold, bound for Cajamarca, had been hidden on the other side of the Cordillera, and that its key was passed down in coded quepu knots, or star patterns, only the high priests understood. Manuel studied the overlaid star charts in a rising hush of astonishment. The distorted constellations looked uncannily like the serpent map. He left the sheets in a folder and continued his shift. But the story walked beside him, every mop stroke a heartbeat, every squeaking wheel of the cleaning cart a drum of impending revelation. At dawn, the day staff arrived. Manuel hovered outside the control room, folder tucked under his arm, until he saw Dr. Elena Hewlett, the principal investigator on the Galaxy's survey project, whose code number appeared in the chart's headers. Elena was American-Chilean, brisk, her hair cinched in a ponytail that bobbed like a metronome when she talked. She was also the rare astronomer who asked Manuel how his mother was faring with her rheumatoid hands. He approached her as she poured coffee. "Doctora, may I show you something?" She eyed the folder. "Observational prints? They should go to Sebastian." "I know. But these someone altered them." Elena flipped through 3 sheets and frowned. "This looks like a transformation matrix got applied twice. Maybe a junior postdoc fiddled with the pipeline. Every night, the same shift." Elena read the timestamps. 2:13 local time, consistent across all 14 nights. "We didn't schedule pipeline runs at that hour. The machine's idle then." "So who used it?" Manuel asked. Elena's fingers tightened. "I'll check the logs." They moved to a workstation. Eleanor's credentials unearthed a command line record. At 2:12 each night, a user named Root had executed a custom script, converting Fit's images to PostScript and sending them to the printer. Yet Root was supposed to be password protected. Somebody had gone super user. Eleanor exhaled slowly. "If this gets out, funding agencies will swarm." "To me," Manuel said, "it is worse. Somebody is mapping something with stars. Maybe a place to dig. Inca gold." Elena half laughed. "Pirates infiltrate the observatory to print treasure maps." Manuel shrugged. "Why else forge constellations?" "I'll lock the server and talk to security. Let's keep this quiet until we know more." That evening, Manuel arrived early. He hid in the shadow behind a service pillar in the data room, a thermos at his feet, eyes fixed on the printer. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m. The building was silent save for the faint hum of cooling fans. At 2:11, bootsteps sounded in the corridor. Manuel squeezed deeper into darkness. A figure in a black fleece entered and sat at the workstation. The glow of the monitor lit French cheekbones. Lucas Dubois, a visiting postdoc from the Sorbonne, specializing in asteroid spectroscopy. Manuel watched Lucas plug in a thumb drive, open a terminal and type rapid commands. 2:13, the printer whirred. Lucas waited until 20 sheets emerged, gathered them into a tube and slid them inside a cardboard mailing tube bearing an international parcel label. Then he sealed the tube with brown tape, shouldered a backpack and strode out. Manuel tailed at a distance through the hallway, into the freight lift and down 3 floors to the shipping bay. Lucas placed the mailing tube in a crate marked "Optical Filters Fragile Return to Paris." He padlocked the crate, slipped the key into his pocket and scanned the area before leaving. The automatic door whooshed shut. Manuel's heart sprinted. He knew the shipping manifests printed at 5 o'clock. Lucas planned to vanish the crate among legitimate equipment transfers. Gold maps disguised as calibration prints? Who would suspect? Elena met Manuel in the break room at dawn. "Lucas," she whispered when he finished, "is on my grant. I vouched for him." "He will mail the prints today," Manuel said. Elena wrestled with disbelief, anger, and humiliation. Then she straightened. "Let's open the crate. Security procedures forbade tampering with sealed outgoing cargo without higher authorization. But Elena's name was on the shipping forms. She could claim a missing lens cap. They convinced Claudio, the logistics supervisor, to unlock the container. Inside lay 3 plastic filter wheels and Lucas's cardboard tube. Elena slit the tape. The rolled charts slid out like a parchment scroll from a conquistador's satchel. Claudio whistled a single note. "That's a lot of paper for the Sorbonne," Elena said. "Manuel, you were right. They copied the prints and replaced them." Claudio relocked the crate, none the wiser to any future shipping inspector. Elena and Manuel spread the pages on a conference table. Elena overlaid the first on a digital star atlas, subtracting coordinates. The deviations formed a vector field whose endpoints, when converted from angular displacement to kilometers at ground level using a standard mnemonic projection, produced latitude and longitude pairs. The numbers landed in the high Andean foothills, specifically in a narrow quebrada near Laguna del Toro, 60 kilometers northeast of the observatory. "Your serpent," Elena conceded, her map. Manuel leaned over the coordinates. "That quebrada lies where Inca trails crossed into Chile." Elena closed her eyes. "We have to tell the carabineros." But Manuel thought of police with backhoes tearing up ancestral ground, of gold carted to museums far away from the communities whose ancestors smelted it. He also thought of Lucas, returning to dig illegally if the authorities ignored the tip-off. "Let us find it first. Then we can involve the right people, maybe the Council of Atacamayu elders." Elena studied Manuel's face. The shy custodian turned detective. Finally, she said, "If we go, we do it safe. We log the site with GPS, photograph everything, and leave the past undisturbed." They borrowed a university pickup under pretext of calibrating a remote weather station. Manuel packed water, torches, a coil of rope, and a tarnished bronze pendant his grandfather had given him, etched with the same serpent design. "In case," he said. Dawnlight chased them up a dirt track flanked by Loretta's cushion plants like green boulders. The plateau rose, barren except for wisps of ecuo grass and lichen-stained rock. At 3,800 meters, the engine gasped thin air. By mid-morning they reached a slope marked by stacked stones and a pacheta, ancient traveler's cairn. GPS confirmed the first coordinate. They hiked into the quebrada, cliffs looming crimson, a stream braided through gravel flashing mica flakes. At the second coordinate, Manuel noticed a natural alcove pocked with soot. Maybe Inca porters had sheltered here centuries ago. On the far wall, faint paint outlined a shape he had drawn in cleaning room pencil only nights before. The serpent. Elena photographed the pictograph. "We just proved Lucas's map has real echoes in the landscape." They continued to a dry waterfall. Above it, a ledge protruded like a stage. The last coordinate rested there, embedded in a matrix of decimal minutes. Manuel climbed first, rope looped over a basalt knob. The ledge formed a shallow cave clogged by rubble. Within minutes they unearthed stacked flat stones that were not wind-fallen. They were placed. Manuel chiseled a gap. Dust billowed with a scent like coins and desiccated corn. Inside lay a ceramic ibelot sealed with hardened resin. Elena's gloved fingers traced spiral motifs. Together they lifted it onto a blanket. Manuel tapped. Something metallic clinked. They did not open it. Elena's voice was hushed. "If this is gold, its context here matters more than the metal. We must document." They recorded coordinates, sketches, drone footage. Manuel anchored the pot beneath stones again, exactly as found, but added a discreet marker he could recognize. A cross of 3 quartz pebbles. They descended by dusk, exhausted, windburned, exhilarated. That night the observatory staff learned of a vehicle accident on the paved access road. Lucas's rental 4x4 had rolled down an embankment. The carabineros found a GPS, climbing gear, and printed star charts matching those in the crate. Lucas, bruised but alive, was in custody. Elena and Manuel exchanged once furtive glances, now bright with shared knowledge. Elena told the police that the charts were stolen data. She did not mention the pot. 2 days later, a delegation from the Universidad de Antofagasta met with Atacamayo community leaders at the observatory. Elena presented a formal report. Suspected archaeological site at Laguna del Toro. Evidence of colonial period activity. Precise coordinates sealed until an ethics board included indigenous representation. She cited Manuel Rojas, maintenance staff, as primary discoverer. Lucas was deported to France under charges of electronic intrusion and attempted trafficking. Rumor said he'd been funded by a Parisian collector obsessed with Inca artifacts. Weeks rolled by. The observatory's dome tracked Jupiter. Comets flared, then faded. Manuel returned to polishing railings, but some nights Elena joined him on the catwalk during his 2 o'clock break. They drank mate and looked southward where the coal sack yawned. "Do you miss it?" Elena asked once. "The thrill of discovery?" Manuel smiled. "The sky gives enough thrill. But I wonder what will happen when they open the pot." "You could be there," she said. "The cultural committee wants you on the expedition. They need someone who respects both broom and star." His laugh echoed in the metal ribs of the dome. He felt dawn within him before it touched the horizon. The expedition departed in November with archaeologists, indigenous elders, a forensic conservator, and Manuel, carrying his grandfather's pendant. Under a canvas awning, they unsealed the Arejibalo. Sand poured like hourglass grains around objects wrapped in camelid cloth, gold figurines of llamas, maize kernels hammered paper thin, a sun disk no larger than a saucer, but chiseled with the royal crest of Huascar, Atahualpa's ill-fated brother. There were also strands of colored wool with knots, the Kepu message. Scholars would debate for years what the knots spelled, but one thing was clear. The treasure was an offering, hidden from the invaders, meant someday to ransom the soul of the Andes. An elder named Doña Macarena lifted the sun disk so its reflection danced on the cave's ceiling. "El sol vuelve," she said. "The sun returns." She placed the disk in Manuel's broad hands. "You saw what the Spaniards could not. A map in the sky. That deserves your touch." Tears blurred the gold until it became molten sunrise. Back at the observatory, the night crew still printed star charts. Manuel stacked them with mild reverence. After all, any page could be more than a map of distant suns. Some nights he lingered by the printer, at 2:13 out of habit. Nothing unusual came. The stars had resumed their ancient positions. Yet once, in midsummer, a single sheet emerged containing no data headers. Instead of coordinate grids, it bore a line of Quechua glyphs, and beneath them, a translation courtesy of whoever or whatever had commandeered the server. "Guard well the paths between heaven and earth, janitor of the night, for not all treasure is buried in soil, and not all maps are drawn with ink." Manuel chuckled, unsure whether Elena had orchestrated the prank or whether the sky itself had dipped a quill. He filed the page in the back of a supply cabinet with his serpent sketches and a sprig of lareta collected during the expedition. When tourists toured the dome on weekend afternoons, guides told them about mirrors, laser guide stars, and dark matter halos. They did not mention the janitor who once saw between the stars and found a serpent of gold. Manuel didn't mind. He had the real sky, a vault where legends still glimmered, and that was wealth enough. On clear nights, he stepped onto the catwalk, lifted his face, and found the faint distortion only he could see. A line of stars tugged ever so slightly, as though winking in gratitude.